friends. I'm your host, Erin Port, and welcome to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. Life can be overwhelming and busy, so once a week, I invite you to join me, and together we will make simple tweaks to uncomplicate the hard parts of our life so we can spend more time doing what we love. Welcome to today's episode of the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. I'm super excited for our guest, Jill Schulman, former U.S. Marine Corps officer, corporate leader, and expert in positive psychology. She's the author of the upcoming book, The Bravery Effect, where she explores how everyday courage can unlock growth, connection, and real joy. Jill is passionate about helping people stop chasing comfort and start practicing brave action, one small step at a time. Her blend of real research, real life wisdom, and practical tools fits perfectly with our beliefs and brand here, that tiny tweaks can lead to big impact, no life overhaul required. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. So welcome to the show, Jill.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited because of your podcast and everything that you do. And then we first got on and we realized we're both from Minnesota. So now I'm even more excited to, should I talk with a Minnesota accent and go out on the lake, Just kidding.
My mom, if she met you, she'd tell you all her Oli and Lena jokes. So
There we
yes.
go. Even just the way you say mom, right? Like just the way whenever I'm talking to my family in Minnesota, which I talk to them a lot, and I get off the phone and I talk to my family, my kids are like, Mom, were you just talking to your dad? And I'm like, guilty. I just go right and back into that Midwestern accent.
I can hear it a little bit just our short time together. I love it. All right. So you have a rich and fascinating story. And for those of my audience that haven't met you yet, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background from the Marine Corps to being a corporate leader to this positive psychology. Tell us your story and why you're so passionate about helping people become brave.
Yeah. Well, I did. I decided to start my career in the Marine Corps. Growing up in Minnesota, I just always I just wanted a career with purpose, and I wanted to see the world. So the Marine Corps was definitely the way to do that. I had a full scholarship, so it was college. I went to school in the University of San Diego, so I was in Southern California. So when you grow up in Minnesota, that's pretty appealing. But really, it was about wanting to do, something that I thought was really meaningful. So I started my career as United States Marine. My grandfather, um, also served as a Marine, and he actually fought in World War II. So there was that little tie-in as well. That was also motivating. And then after the Marine Corps, I got out. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a combat engineer officer, so I was one of the first women to ever serve in that combat arm. And it's like literally we build things and blow things up, like demolitions. Like that's not a very transferable job skill. And so I was working with my recruiters, and I ended up selling drugs, the
Okay.
legal kind, right? The pharmaceutical industry, of course. And I actually fell in love with that industry. I love science.
Mm.
Um, I loved sales and sales leadership. I loved having conversation with doctors, like deep intellectual about improving patient care. So I loved it. So I spent a lot of time, like 13 years in that industry, before I launched my own business doing leadership development. So even though I felt like I knew a lot about how to lead as a Marine Corps officer, I got out as a captain. When I got to corporate America, um, the company I was at had a lot of leadership development classes. It was just part of the culture. And I learned so much that made me a better leader.
Mm.
So I just realized, even to this day, like leadership is one of those things we have to continually work on. So that's what led me to start my own business. So I do leadership development for a lot of Fortune 100 companies, and absolutely love the work. So I drive results through the people side of the business. But now let's get to positive psychology and bravery. So I stumbled upon actually a TEDx. Someone forwarded me a TEDx and said, "Oh, you got to watch this," because I love TEDx talks. And it was a guy. His name is Sean Aker. He wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage. And he basically was talking about how happiness or positive emotions is a business driver. And I'm like, I'm listening because my job is a human side of driving performance. And I knew he was onto something. So then I read his book. And in the back of the book, the back of the book, they always have all the references.
Mhm.
So then I looked up all the other books, and then I bought more books. And then I just started. And the more I read, this just opened me up to the field of positive psychology and I was hooked. So then I was like, okay, could I go back to school? Like I was like 47 years old, right? And you can get a degree in positive psychology. Did you know that? Like
No, I
when
did.
I'm like, I didn't know you can get a degree. And the top school in the country is the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm like, I probably won't get in, but like, let me just try. Somehow I got into this program so I went back to school and I just learned all about the science of happiness and well-being with a focus on organizations. And then when you go through a master's program, you have to do either a master's thesis or we called it a capstone. So that was the area where you got to do a deep dive and do additional research. And that's where I discovered bravery. So bravery, I don't want just people to learn to be brave and be tough and it's not about that. The bravery effect. It actually is a driver of elevating not just your success and impact, but your happiness and well-being because it's about learning how to identify your fears. What are you scared of, but you really want? And what fear is controlling your behavior, holding you back? And then what do we know based on the science of how we can conquer that fear to accomplish what we want? So I just got fascinated, and so I did all my research on it, and here we are today. Now 3 years after that. So that's a long story, a long answer to your question. Sorry.
I love, there's so much to your story that I love. Number one, that you changed course throughout your career, right? You had all these iterations, and I think so many times I have a teenager now, and many of the listeners have kids who are kind of launching into the next phase that feel like they have to get it all figured out at 18. And I love the fact that you've had many iterations, as many people do, to just say, you know what, this is what I want to do now, and this and how every path or every corner turn led you down the path a little bit further. So cool.
Yeah, I
Okay.
love that. And as you say that, like, at least this is my point of view, and I usually have a scientific study to back everything. This is just a Jill opinion. Every time I've taken a leap in a new direction, it's been scary as hell,
Mm,
but it has been exhilarating and it has made my life so much better. So like, I mean, I left Minnesota and spread my wings, took a leap to the Marine Corps, and then I took a leap to the civilian world, and then I took a leap into entrepreneurship, and now I'm taking a leap into research. And so, like, if you are not fulfilled in your job, if you're not enjoying it, like you owe it to yourself and everyone who you work with to like find a way to create more joy in your work or explore other things. I think so many people, this goes back to fear. This
mm,
relates to my topic. I think sometimes we just think like, okay, I've got this job and
mm,
it's a stable job and this is what I studied in college and I just really don't like it, but I just have to stay here. They're stuck. And and I want people to understand that they have agency. They could choose to make a change if they want. And fear is what's holding them back. So I'm glad you said that. But I mean, for all of us, you can develop new hobbies, set new goals,
mm,
make little pivots in your career. In fact, you should as you get sometimes bored.
mm.
Maybe you're doing the same thing. Like maybe you're really excited 10 years ago to start this new job, but now it's been 10 years and you're like, I need a challenge. So yeah.
Okay, your book is called The Bravery Effect, and I'm curious, as you are doing the research for the book, what does the research actually say about bravery? What's happening in our brains and our bodies when we choose to
Mhm.
be brave?
Yeah. So here's what the science says. Let's first of all just look at what the definition of bravery is, because a lot of people don't understand
Mm,
bravery. I mean, when you think of bravery, if I ask people like, what do you think of when you think of bravery? They think of, I see a Navy SEAL or a United States
mm,
Marine or maybe a firefighter running into a burning building. So sometimes what we think about bravery, it's just heroic moments.
mm,
And then usually we also think that people are just born that way. They're just fearless. None of that is true. Actually, well, people are being brave to do that. But our definition of bravery, it should be much larger. So bravery is defined as not being fearless. No, it's taking steps forward in the presence of fear
mm,
towards something that is a meaningful goal or something that aligns with your values. So it's not being scared. People just think of like, oh, I'm just not brave because I just have fear. Like I'm like, brave people have fear. In fact, it's actually baked in. Like if you're not scared, then you're not being brave.
Mm,
Right. So it's the relationship with fear. It's acknowledging that I have some fear and uncertainty and I'm stepping forward anyway. And
mm,
so that's what bravery is. And then think of it very more broadly. It's not just what our heroes and our first responders are doing. Those are examples of extreme bravery. I don't want to discount that, but there's so much more. It could be the bravery to share your idea at the
mm,
next meeting, but you hesitate because you're scared that maybe people won't listen or it'll get shut down, or maybe it's you need to have a difficult conversation with a colleague or with maybe a sister or a loved one because there's tension and you really want to have the difficult conversation, but you choose to not have the conversation because you're scared,
mm,
or there's a promotion or a career pivot that you want to make, but you have the fear that holds you back. So there's so many other applications of bravery than just the bravado, the heroic
mm,
moment. So if we understand what bravery is and how broad it is, then I want everyone to realize what the science says is bravery is for everybody.
mm,
And it's not a trait, it's a skill.
mm,
And the skill that we can build, um, it's like a muscle.
mhm,
It, just like if you want to build a muscle, you don't just go into the gym and try to bench 200 pounds and then go, see, I'm not strong. No, you go in and you lift what you can lift and then challenge yourself a little and then you're a little sore and your body remodels. It's the same thing with bravery. So we can literally build bravery. I mean, and I'm saying this with the evidence, like if you look at neurology and brain scans of people that take steps in the presence of fear and they do that consistently, we actually see their brains change. That's brain plasticity, their prefrontal cortex, their ACC, and all the neural pathways in between. So, like when I say you can grow your bravery muscle, it's not a muscle, but you can your brain will adapt and says, "Wow, you know, I keep being asked to do uncomfortable things. I better get better at doing uncomfortable things."
mm.
So that's just kind of what the definition is. And then of course there's the how. There's so much on the how, and we can get into that too. Like there are there are evidence-based strategies that are simple, like little things that you can do that can make a big impact on your bravery.
Well, let's go
So,
into that because that's what
okay.
I'm all about is helping women who may be overwhelmed by life, may be overwhelmed by fear of making the next right step, but giving
Mm.
them tiny tweaks, these little action steps that help them flex. I call it flexing your fear muscle. And my kids know
Ooh.
that statement, like, okay, we're going to flex our fear muscle today. And so it's kind of a family mantra. But like, what are some of those practical hacks that you can give to women?
So there's three different types of behaviors or exercises that we can do to build our bravery muscle. So I want you to put them in three different buckets. So kind of like if you go to the gym, like you want to like work on strength training, maybe cardiovascular health, and maybe flexibility. So there's like three different areas that you want to kind of work on your fitness, but you don't have to always, you can choose your exercise. So kind of think of it that way. So the three different kind of dimensions of different ways you can build your bravery. One is on mindset. So it's how we think. I draw from cognitive psychology there, right? So that's the first bucket, and I'll come back to it and give you a practical tip. The second is bold action in the presence of fear. So this is what I call brave action. So this comes from behavioral psychology. You can believe all day
Hmm.
and have a positive mindset, but if you don't take a step, you're not being brave. So we got to work on mindset, but we have to make sure that we work on brave action, behavioral psychology, and then finally there's what I call a brave tribe. It's creating the environment which promotes your bravery,
Mm.
you facing your fears. And so that is drawn from social psychology. So I've got cognitive psychology, behavioral psychology, and social psychology, and like little practical tips. So let's get to practical tips. So there's really four things that I teach my clients mainly: growth mindset,
Hmm.
which we know for our kids. You're a mom of a teenager, so you know growth mindset because we talk about kids, but it's for us too. Stress is enhancing mindset, generating positive emotions, and then our chatter in our head. So shifting from listening to the critic to developing that positive voice in the head. So those are, and they're all like, there's a lot to a lot of those, but just the one, if we just go to Carol Dweck's growth mindset. So Carol Dweck, researcher from Stanford, she's the one who really discovered or started writing on growth mindset, the belief that either your traits are fixed, like I'm just not good at something and there's nothing I can do about it, versus a growth mindset, which is I believe that if I put a lot of hard work and effort, I can change my skill there and I can become better at it.
Mm.
So if we just develop that growth mindset and say, hey, uh, I'm just not an entrepreneur. I'm not an entrepreneur
Yeah.
yet. So she uses that word yet, just as it just opens the door of possibility where you're like, oh, yet, what does yet imply? It means that I'm not there now. So it acknowledges reality, but it's possible to get there.
Mm.
And the road to it, is challenging. I want to give you guys one more tip on the cognitive side because this one is probably something your audience has not heard about. So I
Okay.
want to give them something they probably haven't heard about. It's called the stress is enhancing mindset. I don't know, Erin, if you've heard of it. It's
Oh.
Aaliyah Crum. She's now at another Stanford researcher, all these Stanford women, powerhouses, but also Kelly McGonigal. So they've done a lot of research on stress mindset. So what they found is if you think stress is something to avoid, something that's bad, something that's unhealthy for you, that might kill you, then stress will be bad for you and you won't respond well.
Interesting.
But if you develop a stress is enhancing mindset, which means that stress, when I feel my heart beating, when I feel that, the jitters, when you reframe it and say, stress is my body
Mm.
preparing me for something that's really important. Like literally, my heart beating is getting more blood to all the areas so I can perform at my best. The breathing is more oxygen. Like this is energizing me to perform at my best. So there's viewing stress as a positive thing. And then when we stress ourselves or challenge ourselves, that's what helps us grow and develop and achieve more and have a bigger impact in the world. So challenges, stress are good. So the difference between a stress is horrible for you and a stress is good for you mindset, it makes all the difference in the world. So in their research, they found that if people view stress as a good thing, then when they experience stress and adversity and challenges, which
Yeah.
everyone does, then they're going to have a positive response to it. And not only a good psychological response, but physiological response.
Mm.
Like literally, this is Kelly McGonigal's book, which it's called Make Stress Your Friend. She outlines like all the physiological. She's like a health psychologist, so she knows like all, but she literally says if you believe stress is good for you, you don't have your blood pressure doesn't go up. So the inside of your arteries and veins stays relaxed versus when you think stress is bad for you, it constricts. So
Mm.
literally what she shares, she goes, if you think stress is bad for you, like you might die of a premature heart attack because you're always having that negative stress response physiologically. But if you believe what she says is the truth, that stress can be good for you, then you can live to the and have the longest life. So it's so fascinating. So like believe that you can build any skill using the word yet. And then as you try to build that skill, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be stressful. There's going to be obstacles and challenges, and
Mhm.
those are going to make you stronger.
Yeah.
So we work on that. Hmm.
Something else you talk about, which I think you kind of led to that, is we like to be in our comfort zone, right? That's our default. We
Hmm.
all just want to be where we're comfortable. But I have found in my own life that the greatest growth happens when we get out of our comfort zone or when we are brave. And so, can you talk to us a little bit about what it is,
Yes.
like what, because you talk a lot about
Yeah.
that in your
What's
book.
the why? Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. We're talking about getting out of your comfort zone or living at the edge of your comfort zone so that you can live your best life. So when we talk about like comfort, there's two things working against people. So if you default to your comfort zone, I want you to know it's not your fault. Here's
Mm.
the two things that you have working against you, but we need to overcome them. Number one is our biology. like blame evolution,
Mm,
right? So what kept our ancestors alive is they listened to their fear and
mm,
it drove their behavior, so they survived, right? But those are usually physical danger. We no longer are chased by saber-toothed tigers.
mm,
So the things that we're scared of are usually social threats.
mm,
Embarrassed, or I think I'm going to fail.
mm,
So it's just different, but we are wired that way. In fact, Daniel Kahneman, uh, famous psychologist, actually found that we're twice as motivated to choose our behaviors based on avoiding what we fear or what we would lose versus what we gain. So we're kind of wired to listen to our fear and stay safe. So that is the first part. The second part is our modern culture and the messages that are out there.
mm,
Drives me crazy, which is why I'm trying to correct that a little bit here. What we hear from everyone is that in order to be happy, just live an easy life. We're confusing comfort with happiness.
mm,
If you want a life of lower levels of happiness and well-being, and again, I say this as someone who is an expert in positive psychology, then stay in your comfort zone. It is dangerous to stay in your comfort zone. It is not good for you. So, all the messaging out there about just, oh, just, if something's hard, just like take it away. And then, I mean, Erin, I feel like I get in my soapbox here. And sometimes we as parents, we are the worst ones because we just want to help our kids. So anything that stresses them, or causes them any anxiety. And now anxiety is a buzzword. I mean, I have teenage daughters too, right? Oh, I'm stressed. This is causing anxiety. It's like the buzzword that just gives people a pass to not do it. So we're making our kids weaker. We need to make our kids braver. So I'm so glad we're flexing our brave muscle. That's awesome. So that's what we have going against us. It's the popular culture narrative that's out there in our biology sometimes keeps us in the safe zone. Um, and that's why it's good that you talk about getting out of your comfort zone on podcasts like this, because when we step out of our comfort zone or step toward what we want that's out of our comfort zone and take the steps even though we're a little bit scared, what happens, the effect of that is profound. What happens is our self-confidence increases.
mm, mhm,
Yes, we're growing a skill and we're going to accomplish the goal, and that's important. But the bigger gift of stepping out of your comfort zone is what it does to your self-confidence, your self-efficacy, your pride in yourself, So that's what I'm most interested in as someone who studied positive psychology is what it does to your life satisfaction. So we've got to just get used to always stepping out of our comfort zone consistently. And the more that we do it, it's like a muscle. It'll grow. It'll get easier over time.
mhm. I've oftentimes heard courage begets self-confidence, right? First, you have to be
Mhm.
brave, and then self-confidence comes as a result. So that kind of mirrors what
Yeah.
you just said.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't wait until you're ready.
Mm,
Don't wait until you're confident. You're right, exactly. Like again, if you are confident you step forward, then I would say you're not brave. Like, what
mm,
do you mean I'm not brave? Like it took me 10 years to be confident enough. I'm like, well, now you're confident. Like bravery would have been if you would have done it 9 years ago.
mm.
Do
Thing even right, do the thing scared, just go,
it.
right? I love that you said bravery is not the absence of fear. We adopted our youngest one, and I think it was probably the scare. I always tell people I'm so glad we did it, but walking out of that hotel room was the scariest thing I've ever done, right? I walked into the unknown. I mean, I remember my body was shaking. I remember all the physical emotions of what I was experiencing, but I'm a different person for having faced that fear, right? And my life is, like you said, so much better as a result.
Mhm.
And so I'm I fully agree with what you have to say. A real life
Yeah.
application over here.
Yeah. No, I love that example. And you just made me think of too, like if we think of like really what is self-care? Why do we even want to take care of ourselves? It's so that we can have our best life, so we can perform at our best. So sometimes even like people think of self-care as, at least my teenage daughters think about like, oh, it's sleeping in, it's taking baths, it's going for brunch. I define self-care as, keeping your promise to yourself
Mm,
and going after the thing you really want.
mm,
That is true self-care. Don't give up on yourself and take a break toward achieving your goals. But like with anything, like if we use the working out example, right? Like if you want to be the strongest and you're really into working out and bodybuilding and all of that, like you can't work out every day. It's not smart because you got to give your body a rest. So we should be making sure we get enough rest and sometimes just taking that day to let our mind like rest. So that is really important. But I think sometimes like people take multiple self-care days and it's just indulgence,
mm,
right? And it leads to these things can lead to actually depression because they're like, "Ugh, I'm not getting anything done."
and more overwhelm. True.
More overwhelmed. Yeah, because you're escaping, you're escaping the stressful environment and then it builds up when you come back. Yeah, good
Mhm.
point.
Good. Okay, so for the woman who's listening, who feels stretched thin or stuck in survival mode, what does bravery look like for her? How can she practice courage in a way that's doable and not draining or just adding more to the plate?
It's a really great question because I feel like that's all of our reality. So first of all, I want you to look at your life as full. Let's do a little bit of cognitive reframing and then let's get like specific and tactically how can you maybe take some things off your plate. So I had a friend who wrote, she did a post on social media about it. She goes, never say you're busy again.
Mm,
And so now I try to never say I'm busy again. So I try to do a reframe. My life is so full
mm,
of so many wonderful opportunities because I'm so busy with the kids and some of my hobbies and my profession. I'm so fortunate to have such a full life. So let's do a little cognitive reframe there of just realizing how fortunate we are
mm,
to be caring for wonderful kids and to be able to be bringing value at a job. And so a little cognitive reframing, but then some of the people are like rolling their eyes and going like, okay, but it's still really hard. Give us some practical tips. So we'll go there too. So I sometimes will challenge women in that position of saying, what are you afraid to say no to? Sometimes we make the mistake of saying yes to everything, and then we end up setting ourselves up for the current situation that we're in. You have a certain capacity, and when you say yes to everything, you're going to be tired and you're going to be cranky, and then you're not going to be your best self for any of it. So we have to be strategic. So whether you work, you own your own business, or you're a stay-at-home mom, we all need to think strategically this way and saying, I, when I am during my waking hours, I want to operate at my highest level.
mm,
And I need to be strategic with my time and go, what are the most important things or goals do I want to work toward? And you need to think of, have you ever done the Stephen Covey, like, what are my biggest rocks? It's
mm,
such a powerful thing. And then you have to say no to the things that aren't going to fit into your life. And it's hard to say no, right? But if they're not your most important things, like when you say yes to things that are not the very most important, then you're actually taking away from the most important things or yourself. So, I want everyone to be a little bit, and it's not being selfish, it's about being strategic. So sometimes when I tell people, like, you're saying no to be the most strategic, to bring the most value to the most important parts of your life. So we've got to start there. So there's a practical exercise. You can do your identification of what are all the most important things in life. And then you can like literally look at a day or even a week and look at how you spend all of your time.
mm,
And then make some decisions like how could I better invest my time?
mm,
And it's amazing how much time we can get back. I'm going to give you one example of one thing I did. Because I have a full life of kids and career and hobbies, and then I was going back to school full time at Penn too. So many things going on. One of the things that I used to do every morning is I would get up and I would come downstairs and I would have a cup of coffee or two and I'd watch the morning news for an hour. Such a little thing, but I thought about all the important things in life. I would spend probably 7 to 10 hours a week watching the news. I made a decision. I'm like, is that one of my big rocks?
Mm.
Right? Like, and I replaced that time. I started doing some what I call self-care. Like I started journaling, um, planning my intentions for the day, doing a gratitude journal, reading a little bit of stoicism. Oh my gosh, what a game changer. So like just so instead of like trying to do more, identify one thing that's kind of more of a not necessarily a bad habit, but it's just not bringing a lot of value.
Mhm.
And then replace that something that's higher value. And so that's what we do when we talk about strategy, because I teach companies like, strategy and how do you lead strategy? Like strategy is choice. What are the most important things? And the things that you say no to, it's not that they're not good things, but like watching the news is not a bad thing, but it's not the most important. So I decide to say no to that. And then I replace it with something different that is more productive.
Mm. That's so good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to value your time. So I want to wrap up here with the last question. I ask every guest this question. And then if you would end with where they can find you, where they can find the book, of course, we'll put
Sure.
the information
Yeah.
for the book in our show notes. But what's one tiny tweak? What's one tiny change you've made recently that's made your life 100 times easier? And you've talked about taking the news away and starting your day differently, but is there something else
Mm.
as well?
Yeah, just a little tiny tweak is I now prioritize sleep.
Mm, I
I It's really important and it's just made such a difference. So try to get at least 7 to 8 hours, just a little tweak, right? And it's made all the difference in the world.
I
So
love that. I'm
yeah,
glad to hear leaders talking about that because I've always been one that needed a lot of sleep and I didn't see that coming from a lot of places. And so it felt, as you said, indulgent or self, like
like why?
something
What's
that,
wrong with you? Like
yes,
Chuck, people,
exactly.
sleep is for the weak, and
Yep.
I used to have that mindset, right? And so now I've learned like that is the stupidest thing ever to think of like I'm going to stay up until midnight and get up at 5 every day because I'm so busy.
Yeah.
Like that is just stupid, right? Like so let's be strategic and then yeah, prioritizing sleep. It's so important for our psychological health, our physical health. And now I get that 7 hours and it's a priority for me. Yeah.
I love that. All right, Jill, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I know my listeners are going to leave this podcast a little braver, a little stronger, going out and flexing their fear muscle. And I will put all the information about how they can find you in the show notes. But thank you
Oh,
so much, Jill.
my pleasure. And easiest thing is just go to my website, jillschulman.com, and then there's links to everything, the book and all that stuff. But thank you so much for having me. It was so fun to have a conversation with a fellow Minnesotan.
Yeah. And you'll have that accent the rest of the day. You're welcome.
I will. Oh, you betcha.
If you liked this episode, it would mean so much if you'd share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review so others can find our show. Until next time, you can find me at Simple Purposeful Living on Instagram and Facebook.